Hi everyone, welcome back to the SportsKhabri Podcast. I'm Anshuman Joshi, once again joined by Arunava Chaudhuri. And today we are going to talk about the broadcasting of the Indian Super League. So many of us know that the broadcaster for the Indian Super League, that is Star, is also a stakeholder. So we're going to go a bit into that today, and we are going to look into what it actually means. Many of us have touched about it. We have a vague idea as to what it's supposed to mean. But today we discuss in detail as to what it entails in terms of revenue, what it entails in terms of broadcasting in general, in terms of the tender of the broadcasting rights, what does the media rights going to the Viacom 18, what's all that business. So Arunava, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And let's dive straight into it. Let's talk about this. What exactly it means when we say that Star is not only a stakeholder, it also has the broadcasting rights for it. What are the pros and cons of the matter?
I think to start off with, Anshuman, we have to go back to 2012, 2013, when the whole discussions were going on in how to run club football in India. 2010, Reliance, through an MRA, got the rights from the AIFF, not only the marketing rights, but the operational rights of competitions as well from the AIFF. And they looked at initially to rebrand the I-League. For multiple reasons, it did not happen then. And that's another topic that we could actually discuss, because a lot of people who sort of, play the blame game of, the ISL has killed the I-League and all that stuff. There are multiple reasons for that, but that's never been discussed because a lot of people don't even know that. But again, I think we'll keep it for another day. Let's focus on 2012 and 2013 when the ISL was conceptualized and when Reliance was looking to start in 2013. They took on a pool of players. They wanted to rebrand it, looked at models of how to start a new fresh league. And the biggest problem at the time was the topic of broadcast, because also in 2010 when Reliance took over the rights were originally with the Z Group, who via Z Sports, 10 Sports were showcasing Indian football. But again, they spend a lot of money trying to do that in the earliest. In 2007, the NFL was rebranded as the I-League, and all those things happened. But broadcasting was a key element of what was to happen to this new product, which was termed as Indian Super League. And in the discussions with certain broadcasting corporations and groups, it came out that Reliance was looking at a strong partner and saying, listen, we need to have an international quality level broadcast, and they were able to get Star on board, and not only Star on board, Star actually said, listen, we will make a commitment, we will invest in this league. So besides IMG, who was the sort of global marketing partner in this project, and Reliance, Star became the third partner in the project and put in 200 crores into the project and said, committed, as did the franchisees, for 10 years, we will broadcast this league. And there were certain things that certain money has exchanged sides. At some stage, Star was being paid for the production. Star had to raise money to put production in. And if you see what Star has done, overall, the broadcast of the Indian Super League is world class. I think no one can doubt that. So that's a strong point. But of course, what has happened is that for whatever reasons over the last 2-3 years, due to pandemic, due to this, due to that, the viewership of the Indian Super League in general has dwindled, and that is not only in the stadiums, but also if you look at television and especially streaming, where streaming very often you would have had sort of lakhs of people watching it. Now very often people are telling me who are watching it on Hotstar that the figures are in the 10,000s. So these are all reasons for Star to reconsider and think, okay, do I continue to invest into Indian football ISL, or do I invest into properties with which I can potentially make money, which you also are not. IPL for Star is a loss-making entity at the moment. So Disney is saying to its Indian operations, guys, you need to, in the sports segment, need to reduce costs. That's why also Star is trying to renegotiate its deal with the BCCI. So from that standpoint, it is very, very clear that Star at the moment doesn't want to continue. But the ISL needs a broadcaster from the 2024-2025 season onwards. You have a new player in the sports broadcasting business, which started a few months ago in Sports 18, with a special focus, of course, on football, with being the broadcaster of the FIFA World Cup a few months ago. So and of course being owned by Reliance, that logical connection is being made, of course, with officially being called Viacom 18 because it's a partnership between Star and Viacom. Between Reliance and Viacom. That would be the partner who comes in and takes over the rights. So that's the sort of, sorry, I had to do a little bit of a longer explanation, but this is sort of in a gist to explain that is what it was, and this is what the scenario going into the potentially next cycle is.
Right. So Star had it for quite a while, and going into the 24-25 season, it looks like Viacom 18 is going to take over. That's a nice segue for us, because when we talk about Viacom 18, the recent development that at least I have known about is that they have acquired quote unquote media rights for the Indian Super League. And currently when I browse through JioCinema, their app, their proprietary app, I noticed that the ISL matches that are being broadcast on Disney Plus Hotstar are also being streamed for free on the JioCinema app. So my question would be, what exactly is this media rights agreement? What exactly it entails? And Viacom 18 essentially is already broadcasting the Indian Super League. So where does Star come into all this? What exactly does the transition entail, going from Star to Viacom 18? Has it already happened? Are we going to see something new happening? And if Viacom 18 are to completely take over the ISL package, what becomes of the Star's involvement in the league?
To start off with, the current deal that is in place is a sub-license deal. And because Jio belongs to Reliance, I think the logic was to make the ISL potentially available to more subscribers. I have not seen any figures. Maybe you have or heard what kind of figures that JioCinema is showcasing for the ISL. I haven't heard anything. But this is being done to broad base the coverage and sort of the live match streaming of the Indian Super League. It's like I'm sitting here in Germany, I can watch it via the One Football platform. They are broadcasting it globally. So in that way, FSDL, thanks to that, I can watch it here. But it's a very important step to actually try and broad base the coverage to ensure that as many people as possible are watching the Indian Super League on one side, and on the other side, it's of course visibility also for your sponsors. I think that's a very important aspect of today's professional Indian sports, that the sponsor wants a certain level of visibility via television, via streaming, via social media, via other branding opportunities. The transition is going to be a very interesting one, because people are saying, hey, listen, it's just Star's going to leave it and Viacom 18 is going to take it. I think it's a little bit more complex, because with Star being a stakeholder in the league, it's not just a simple rights business deal. The question now is Star going to try to sell its stake in the league back to Reliance, to FSDL, which means that something that they pay 200 crores for in 2014, what is their evaluation of their stake in the league? That's the first one. And secondly, if Star also leaves it, will they leave this property to a competitor, which Sports 18 is growing into, right? It's a fight between, on one side you have Disney Star, you have Viacom Reliance, you have Sony as another entity in there, you have potentially Discovery via Eurosport also playing around with some of the rights that they've picked up from the AFF of Indian football recently. So there are 3 or 4 global players in the television business who are eyeing the sports market in India. So therefore, I don't think it's such an easy thing to just say, listen, Viacom 18 will take it over, because a lot of people are assuming it's logical, because Viacom 18, it is Sports 18, the whole network is partially owned by Reliance. The ISL is run by Reliance. Therefore, it automatically goes to Viacom 18. And I think there is going to be some discussion happening in the background, because Star might realize is that, listen, there is a certain buzz and interest in the market. If you see how much of discussions there were on especially on social media, and some online media outlets also reported about it, that they might change their opinion and might say, listen, guys, you know what, we paid little money for it. 200 crores is not that much. Let's keep the rights. Maybe Disney, the Americans might say, listen, let's keep the rights. Let's not sell it. So therefore, at the moment, it looks very, very likely that Star is gonna relinquish its 10-year relationship with the Indian Super League, and the rights then moves over to Viacom 18. But who knows? There might be a twist to the tale.
So, with Star being a broadcasting party and Reliance essentially wanting to expand its own base in the broadcasting ecosystem, could we not say that it's a bit of a conflict for Reliance to keep Star on board, especially if they are trying to expand their own broadcasting scene via Sports City?
It's a very, very valid question. But the question is also, it's not just Reliance, but you've got Viacom as a partner involved. Viacom 18 just bought for a lot of money the rights for the Women's Premier League, the Women's IPL. That's a huge amount of money. That's a huge part of investment, which is coming into Indian sports. But again, that's a different discussion, because I feel anything which is related to cricket, and it doesn't matter if it's within India or outside of India, the Indian broadcasters just snap it up like this and try to monetize it. Therefore, football needs to see where it stands. And I think at the moment, the biggest problem that Indian Super League or Indian football in general has, which is a topic I've also raised on Twitter, is, and when I asked the question, is why is there a dwindling interest really in the league, not only in the ISL, but also in the I-League, in the stadium, on media, on streaming, on social media. So therefore, that is something that might harm this whole process. So therefore, there are a few stumbling blocks, I think. But I think there will be a solution found, and then we will see who will continue with the broadcast from 24-25. Because again, all the original deals that were done in 2013 for the creation of the Indian Super League from 2014 onwards, they all run out. Be it the franchise deals, be it the television deals. There's even certain sponsorship packages which have been there from day one. So it'll be very interesting to see.
So this brings me to the matter of ISL's dwindling popularity and the fact that the streaming and the broadcasting still remains in-house, whether it goes from Star to Viacom 18, however way it happens. So I want to take the example of IPL, because it's one of those entities that has not been that does not have a stakeholder in a broadcaster essentially. And over the years, we have seen it go from Sony to Star, and now the digital rights are going to Viacom 18 for next season onwards. And I think of the time when Sony had the IPL rights, and I remember that the buzz that they used to create about the competition was completely different one. They knew how to spice it up away from the pitch, away from the action. I still remember the songs that used to come up when the broadcast remained with Sony, and it was much more interesting than whatever it is Star is doing right now. So even I see the social media discussions about the IPL, and people just have this general consensus that as long as it remained with Sony, the masala aspect of it was much better than what it is with Star. So that brings me to the idea of generating that kind of interest. So my question, bringing this back to the ISL context, would be: is there a direct connection between the broadcasting rights remaining in-house and the dwindling popularity of the Indian Super League, or not? And if we were to take the broadcasting rights and we were to say that, okay, if we were to put this on the market, if we were to invite a bidding process from all parties, could that in any way whatsoever increase an interest in the Indian Super League?
It's a very interesting point. Going back to the IPL and 2007 when this all started, Sony didn't have a sports channel. So actually, de facto, the entertainment guys were somewhat, helping them to run this baby. And I think, if I'm right, Sony Max used to show it at the time. So that's something, again, that's in Bombay, and with Bollywood, with all this masala that is possible, with that one tune that is always there, and, played in the games. They've done a good job. But on the other side, I have to praise Star. I was involved in 2014, was running Mumbai City FC. So I know that Star did a lot of things right in the first year. I remember the campaign, Ye Diwali Football Wali. And I used to remember Freddie Ljungberg used to always, because he was part of the campaign, used to go past me and say, Ye Diwali Football Wali, and all that kind of stuff. They did a good job in the first year, even in the second year. But the problem has been that the marketing spend, not only of the league, but of the broadcaster and all the franchises, has dwindled massively over the last nine seasons now. And that's the biggest problem that we have. I think that there needs to be a creative buzz about it. If you give it to a classic sports broadcaster, they will focus on the sports. But in India is a different kind of market. I think even Star is realizing that the IPL numbers are not as high as they used to be. There's a dwindling interest in cricket. I think there's too much of cricket around, I think that's a danger that there's an overkill. The ISL needs to somewhat reinvent itself. I think there needs to be some new inputs. I think I need to see some new faces on television as well. Some other people are talking about the ISL, because it's the same set. No disrespect to those people, but that too many of the faces have been around for now for those 9 years, or next year 10 years. I need new faces. I need new stories. I need to know, there needs to be a little bit of more connectivity created. And I think that's what's missing about this. And that's going to be the big challenge that Sports 18 has, because I was at the start of the World Cup there, watching in India, and watching the World Cup in India and on Sports 18. And I didn't, you brought in the big names, but can those, only a big name will not be able to create that buzz that you need. And I think that's the challenge that they stand for it, be it a Star or be it a Viacom 18.
That is quite true. And so that brings me to the point of the bidding process. Let's say hypothetically that both the Star and Reliance realize that, okay, if we bring a third party as broadcaster into, if we open even the bidding process even to some aspect, let's say we put the digital rights on put the tender out for digital rights. So are there other competitive parties out there that might actually be interested in acquiring the ISL broadcasting rights in any capacity, despite the dwindling popularity? And if that so happens, if there is a bidding process and a third party arrives, would that help the ISL in any way, shape whatsoever?
I think a bidding process would be great to have, but the question is, given this, what we've been talking about for the last 15 plus minutes, is Star is involved. Viacom 18 theoretically could get involved through its parent body. Would a Sony or would a Discovery via Eurosport be interested in the rights? Difficult. And on the other side, when we come to digital, it's either Disney Hotstar, on the other side, Geo. And that way, both of them are again interlinked. So I think a bidding war looks very, very difficult. I think then you have to sort of, throw it into the open market and Star needs to hand back its ownership to Reliance, and Reliance needs to buy it back. Otherwise, I see it very difficult, because I think that the question is at the moment is, what is the value of Indian football? People are comparing it to cricket or even to women's IPL. I mean, women's IPL, the rights are the second highest in Indian sports, which shows the strength of cricket when it comes to broadcast. So, and look at the prices that the franchisees are willing to pay to buy those 5 franchises. So therefore, and we have in Reliance buying the Mumbai franchise, GSW involved in buying the Delhi franchise. People who are involved in the ISL. The ISL is nothing compared to cricket in regard to that, right? I mean, if they, with the profits that they make in IPL, they can run an ISL team with losses for 5 years, most probably, easily. So therefore, that is the danger that we have, that commercially Indian football needs to grow massively. And growing commercially means also, a TV rights market, because that TV rights market money goes back into the game. That is not happening at the moment. And that's a big, big loss. I think, as I said, it might be that with cricket men's cricket being as big as it is, the second position soon might be women's cricket. So therefore, those dangers are there. And I think football needs to introspect massively. Indian football needs to introspect massively. The people running it at different levels need to introspect and realize, is like, guys, what are we doing to keep the fans who are there interested on one side? How do we attract new fans, be it part-time fans or fans who are really committed to the game? Because that is something that's a strength of the IPL. You have certain people who just watch the IPL and don't care about the rest of the cricket. And I think we need to get there. And again, we have a longer league now in the ISL. The league is going to expand even further in the coming years. So there are a lot of challenges ahead of Indian football.
Yes. Let's assume a worst case scenario. Let's assume that 2-3 years down the line, both Star and Reliance look at it and realize, what, the spending for the broadcasting aspect of it is not raking us enough revenue for us to be bothering with this. And both of us want to relinquish our broadcasting rights to whoever party comes in forward. And if in that scenario, if we end up in a bit of a stalemate where the both Star and Geo who have the rights, they want to relinquish it, but there isn't a third party there that is coming in and taking the money off their hands, because they are evaluating in such a way so that they want to save some losses as well. They want to cut their losses, but the third party is like, okay, we do not value this as much. And if that such of a stalemate happens, in case it happens, what does that mean for the ISL?
I think that stalemate cannot happen because as long as FSDL, Reliance are running the league, they will ensure that there is a broadcasting partner on board. And if Star or the other broadcasters say no, then Reliance will get Viacom 18 to show the league. The question is are they going to do it in the way they've done? You've seen Star has cut down a lot in regard to its coverage overall. That's the question, and that's very important that those who call themselves for fans of Indian football watch Indian football, be it ISL, be it I-League. Otherwise, broadcasters will never show a growing interest in Indian football, and that's a very, very important aspect of how and what Indian football actually needs to do, as Indian football meaning the fans need to do.
Right. So, in the eventuality that Star completely relinquishes its broadcasting rights and they entirely go to Viacom 18, which would mean that Jio Cinema would broadcast the Super League, it digitally, and Sports 18, the Sports 18 channels, they would broadcast it on telly. So, in that case, do you think that the broadcast package that Jio single-handedly could offer would be a better one than Star, or would it remain more or less the same?
If you see some of the presenters and commentators who switched from Star to Sports 18 pre-World Cup, then you realize that the portfolio is already there for them to potentially host the Indian Super League in the future. So that is already there. The question is, if you see how they did the World Cup, they spent quite a bit on it. So you know that they will try and do certain things maybe in a new way, in a different way. But I think it's very, very important. I know that is it's no point of discussing it. I think that you need to bring in new faces, new elements to the whole thing to get a new set of fans interested in the Indian Super League. I think that's very, very crucial. Therefore, the broadcasting is amongst the most important things, and not only that, because it's not just getting the fans to watch it, but I look at also from the sponsor's perspective, who will ask for for data, for how many people are watching, how many interactions, there's that and everything, and that needs to grow. But for that marketing spend to grow, the league needs to be able to get a certain amount of more followership across, from live stadium, from television, from streaming, and of course also social media interactions.
So based on what we have seen Jio Cinema be able to do with what they have at the moment, and compared to what Star is able to do with the sports competitions portfolio that they have, do you think that Jio is better equipped to market the Indian Super League than Star is at the moment?
If I look at how they marketed the FIFA World Cup, I would say yes. But I also know that what Star did in 2014 for the Indian Super League. So I know that Star could do more. So from that perspective, it's a question of how much are they willing to spend. And if you see how much, again, Sports 18 went out, not only them, but Jio Cinema as well, what they went out and did on billboards, on social media, on television, this, that, and everything. Again, if Star did it today, I think you would have a bit of a bigger viewership for the ISL. But the question is, of course, is that people are trying to cut losses. That's a fact. And that is the main reason of why marketing spend has been cut back over the last few years.
Right. So current situation, based on how recent Jio's entry has been into broadcasting football competitions, we could safely say that they might be in a better place. They might be even more interested in promoting the ISL than Star is, given the lack of interest that we have had, given the lack of marketing enthusiasm we have seen from Star over the last 7 years. Because even when I started watching ISL, I remember watching the first few seasons and then just completely going off the rails. Because 2014, you remember the campaigns, you remember the jingle that came at the time, and after that, you don't really remember much else. So with Star, there's always been this sense that, okay, ISL promoting ISL and broadcasting ISL has become more of a perfunctory affair, something that they have to do because it's sort of their property as well. So something has to be done about it. And Jio's recent acquisition, the work they did with the World Cup, makes you think that, okay, there are hits and misses there, but at the very least, they are trying. There is a sense of intent there that currently does not seem to exist with Star. So the thing that comes out to me in all of this is that at least in the mid to long term, the ISL is secure insofar as it's not going to go completely. It's not going to stop existing immediately. The discussion of the clubs and the money that they are hemorrhaging is a slightly different matter. But as long as the clubs are sustained, as long as the expansion, I would like to think that the expansion of the ISL in the coming 2-3 years, which is imminent, would make sure that the league at least continues for a while for a football ecosystem to develop in due time. And as long as Jio exists there as a broadcaster, ready to broadcast the league as long as it's available, for me at least, as someone with not much of knowledge of the Indian football, leaves me with a slightly optimistic note that, okay, as long as we have something over nothing, it might be able to, give us enough time to have some sort of football ecosystem prosper. And if we can market this the right way, maybe we can, a lot of maybes I know, but maybe we can get the interest generating once again. So that brings us to the conclusion of the fundamental discussion that we were to discuss today. Do you have any closing remarks on the whole matter?
Yeah, thank you first of all to SportsKhabri that we pick up this topic and discuss it in a little bit more detail and go a little in depth, because I think, and no disrespect to other people, but a lot of these discussions on social media and things are very, very shallow. And I think they just need to, some of the people have sort of sold it as if the deal is already done. Again, conversations are happening in the background. There are a lot of factors, as I said, involved in this. It's not an easy sort of media rights deal where you put out a tender and say, hey, listen, pick up the tender, and then we will do a bidding, and then we'll sit down, and then whoever wins it gets it. It's not that. And I think there needs to be a clear to football fans that they need to be watching Indian football. A lot of people, I feel, are just there to armchair criticism on social media. Watch it live, watch it on telly, watch it on streaming, give it support, and that's very, very important at the moment for the broadcasters to also see that yes, there is a certain market for football in this whole sports ecosystem in India.
Right. So that brings us to the end of this episode of the SportsKhabri Podcast. I've been Anshuman Joshi. I thank you once again, Arunava, for joining us for the discussion. We will be back again, once again, to discuss another aspect of Indian sports. And if you like what we are doing, please give us a like and subscribe. And please leave down in the comments and reach out to us via social media. Tell us how we can do better, because that's something that we always strive to do. So yeah, goodbye for now.
Bye.